Today, there are over 30,000 diseases known worldwide, 100 plus different autoimmune diseases, 200 plus cancer variations, and 300 plus mental disorders. Now, what if I told you that these so-called diseases weren't separate at all? What if I told you they were all manifestations of the same problem? Well, let me try to explain to you the illusion of disease. First, I'm going to present you with a list of disease names, and I want you to tell me if you notice any patterns. Pancreatitis, arthritis, thyroiditis, tonsillitis. Do you hear the one thing that they all have in common? They all end with the suffix itis. Now, what does itis mean exactly? Itis simply translates to the inflammation of. So when doctors give you the diagnosis of arthritis, colitis, cellulitis, they're giving you the diagnosis of inflammation in whatever part of the body you're experiencing pain or illness, right? Pancreatitis would translate to inflammation of the pancreas. Thyroiditis would translate to inflammation of the thyroid. Now, why would every patient be experiencing the same inflammation, but in different parts of the body? Why is it that every patient seems to be manifesting this inflammation, but just in different organs or tissues? Is there not a correlation here? When you go to the doctor because you are experiencing pain in your joints and your blood work comes back with high C-reactive proteins, your doctor may analyze your symptoms and then give you the diagnosis label of arthritis. The thing is, all these doctors are doing is stating the obvious. They see that you have inflammation in your joints or your thyroid or whatever body part that is presenting pain, and they give you a name for that inflammation. Ulcerative colitis, juvenile arthritis. Aren't they so creative? How nice of them to label it for you. Next thing you know, they're giving you a chemical medication associated with your designated disease. The speech goes something like this. So it looks like your diagnosis is arthritis. I'm sorry, we don't really know why it's happening. Maybe something to do with your genetics and the body attacking itself, but we're going to tell you what to do about it anyway. There's no cure, but we can manage your symptoms with medications and steroids. You'll have to be on them all your life. No, eating fruit and vegetables won't get rid of your disease. In fact, don't eat so much fruit. It's too much sugar. But keep drinking your milk and eating protein. Sorry, we don't have time to answer any more questions about your diagnosis, but maybe we can chat 6 months from now at our next 20-minute appointment. By that time, you'll have lots of new symptoms and side effects to talk about then anyway. Here's your prescription for those 2 immunosuppressant drugs we didn't get a chance to discuss in depth. Yeah, they're safe, but you'll have to get blood tests every other week so we can see how your body is reacting. Alright, looks like you're all set. See you in 6 months. See, I don't know about you, but in my experience, that's exactly how these doctor appointments have gone my entire life. So, doctor, you are telling me you don't know what's causing the disease. You have no idea why inflammation is occurring. You have no answers for any of my questions, and yet you still have the authority to make decisions about my health? To give me chemical medications that will alter the natural chemistry of my body when you don't even seem to understand why disease is presenting itself in the first place? These doctors are trained in the realms of biochemistry and biology, yet they can't seem to grasp the most fundamental, basic concepts of chemistry and life. To think food, a chemical, energetic substance that enters our mouth and goes into the digestive tract to be metabolized, has zero impact on our health, is simply living in a world of delusion. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. This includes the consumption of pharmaceuticals as well as the consumption of food. To deny these basic laws is to deny the truth of our existence. Does anyone else see the blatant idiocy of this? The fact that we trust these medical professionals to make decisions about our health when they don't even really understand it themselves. Just because they have a fancy white coat and the word doctor in front of their name, that somehow gives them credibility. These so-called medical professionals who serve cheeseburgers and pizza to their sick patients. I mean, just look at the food served to cancer patients in the hospital. Look at the rooms these sick patients are put into. Dark, gray, no sunshine, no color. Do you really think these health centers were created to promote healing? Now let me ask you this. If there are over 1 million actively practicing physicians in the US alone, over 230,000 doctors' offices open to the public, and 20,000 prescription medications available for doctors to use to treat disease, Why are there still 133 million people in the US alone still left with a chronic condition? 50 million left with an autoimmune disease, 4.5 million experiencing adverse side effects from medication. And how many do we see walking out of a doctor's office free from disease? Would the United States still like to claim they are the most medically advanced country in the world? Oh wait, that's right. Medical error is one of the top 3 causes of death. Is that surprising? And by the way, do you know how much money there is in this business of disease? In 2020, the average salary for a medical specialist was $346,000. Cardiology, $438,000. Radiology, $427,000. But the high pay is because they're doing so much good, right? They're saving lives and helping people. Then why is heart disease still the number 1 cause of death, cancer the number 2, and medical error number 3? I'm just asking. There's only one true disease going around the population of man, and that disease is unconsciousness. It's time we wake up to the illusion of disease in the business of medicine. It's time we become our own doctors. That's what I've had to do to heal from my own diseases. I was given the labels of bone cancer, vasculitis, and juvenile arthritis. But every single one of those names actually disconnected me from the truth of what it really was. Made me make decisions out of fear instead of understanding, forcing me to become a slave to pharmaceuticals and a servant to Western medicine. But now, I'm going to share with you what doctors couldn't explain so that you too can understand your own disease and what it really means. Because you don't need a fancy medical degree to understand it. And it all can be explained with chemistry. So remember how I told you itis means inflammation? Well, inflammation is simply an immune response to foreign protein and foreign chemistry. There are only 2 sides of chemistry, right? Acid and base. Which side do you think inflammation and disease falls on? The acids or the alkaline side? The acids, right? Okay, so our body is only made up of 2 things, cells and fluid. You have cells making up every single organ, tissue, and gland, and then fluid that surrounds those cells. Now the interstitial fluid, meaning the fluid between your cells, are also only made up of 2 things, your blood and your lymphatic system. Contrary to what doctors believe, everything does not revolve around the blood. Toxins and acids are not dumped into the bloodstream. If the pH of the blood were to change even slightly, there would be instant death. That being said, the acids have to go somewhere. So where do they go? Out through the lymph. Your blood only makes up 20% of that interstitial fluid between cells, while your lymphatic system makes up 80% of that fluid. So which do you think is more important? The lymphatic system. But they completely disregard the role of the lymphatic system when it comes to the progression of disease. The blood is the kitchen. Our lymph is our sewer system. It drains out our acidic waste through the kidneys into the bladder, where they are excreted through the urine. If the lymphatic system becomes clogged with our own acid buildup due to the acid-ash food we are eating, or the auto-intoxication of our own cellular waste, and the kidneys have halted their filtration of such acids, you have a recipe for pain and disease. Your lymph nodes are your septic tanks that neutralize antigens or toxins. So when doctors decide to remove your lymph nodes, tonsils, or kidneys, they are removing a pathogen waste filtration system. They do not realize how important these organs and glands are to the health of our body. The autoimmune reaction doctors see is simply the antibodies creating an immune response to antigens or foreign protein that is not harmonious with our natural chemistry. Antibodies themselves induce inflammation. So when we see inflammation, pain, or illness start to arise within the body, we know it has started to fall on the acid side of chemistry. Acids are painful. They rip things apart and destroy cells. On the pH scale, acids within the body are 3 pH. To put that in perspective, that's close to your stomach acid at 2 pH. Or worse, battery acid at 1 pH. Battery acid is so acidic that it can dissolve even the hardest substances like metal and concrete. Now, if the acids produced by our own cellular and metabolic waste are only 2 ranks higher than the pH of deadly battery acid, one can only imagine what those acids are doing within the body. This is the origin of your pain. The acids that were supposed to be filtered out by your kidneys are now recirculating throughout your body, re-intoxicating your cells and causing you pain and inflammation. To put this in perspective, there are over 37.2 trillion cells within the body. Every single one of those cells produces its own waste. That's a lot of waste. Now imagine how much that accumulates within our lymphatic system, our sewer system, if it is not exiting properly through the kidneys. Imagine the lymphatic system like the pipes in your home. If they become clogged, the waste has nowhere to go. It creates stagnation, accumulation, and further problems for the entire home. It's the same way with your body. If your lymphatic pipes get clogged, it creates problems systematically within every other system, and we start to see tumors, acne, cysts, bacteria overgrowth, and the progression of what Western medicine calls disease. But like Dr. Moore says, all disease is simply acidosis. Acidosis of your own body. It doesn't matter what label your doctors have given you. It is the body falling on the acid side of chemistry. It is the re-intoxication of our own waste and metabolic byproducts that our body has stopped eliminating. The excretion of these acid wastes is vital for our body to maintain homeostasis. When there is too much acid chemistry, whether that be from the protein amino acid foods we are eating or the environmental toxins we are exposed to, we begin to see the body initiate the process of ionization to achieve homeostasis and balance. So let me try to explain this at the subatomic level. In an atom, we have the protons and neutrons inside the nucleus, orbited by the electrons. If an atom loses too many electrons, it becomes cationic, or acidic. To correct the imbalance, our body facilitates the process of ionization in order to gain back those lost electrons. Acids like to steal electrolytes from our cells. That's why in all disease there's some degree of dehydration. And no, I'm not talking about the electrolytes in Gatorade or energy drinks. Most people are consuming very electrolyte deficient foods. Anything dry, processed, high protein, high fat generally is very dehydrating and provides no electrolytes for the cells to correct the imbalance of acidity, to keep you from becoming proton dominant. So instead of your food providing you with life-giving electrolytes, the acids in your food begin to suck those electrolytes from your cells. So what does our body do when it isn't able to get the necessary electrons it needs to maintain homeostasis? Well, it will start to draw calcium from our bones, cholesterol begins to plaque, inflammation, your immune response, and mucus starts to appear. These are all protective measures of the body to prevent cell death, to cushion acidity. These responses are perceived as bad, but these measures are an attempt of your body to help you from your own auto-intoxication induced by an acid-ash diet and your own cell waste. The tunica intima, your vascular walls, as well as the elemental makeup of your blood, are naturally alkaline. We only begin to see plaquing, coagulation, hardening of the arteries, mutation of cells, and the breakdown of bone tissue on the acid side of chemistry. Your parathyroid gland's calcium buffering system kicks in and begins to draw calcium from your connective tissue, from your teeth, and from your bones. When the parathyroid is no longer able to maintain calcium homeostasis, we begin to see symptoms such as depression, varicose veins, osteoporosis, stress fractures, as well as easy bruising. Edema, or water weight, is the next attempt to fix dehydration and acidosis. Water is the universal solvent, right? So the body is going to bring in a solvent and use the processes of osmosis and diffusion, in this case hydrogen, in order to buffer the acidity of the cells and protect you from cell death. Lots of people see swelling in their hands and feet because that fluid was drawn to those particular areas that have become acidic. It's also an indication the kidneys have stopped filtering. Those patients are given diuretics to help them drain the excess fluid from their kidneys and urine. But do you see the connection here? Each kidney controls each side of the body lymphatically, which is why some people may only see swelling on one side or one leg. Now let's talk about mucus. Mucus is produced by your mucosa, which lines all of your tissues and cells as a part of the lymphatic system. We are taught that this mucus is bad, but again, it is a protective buffering measure of the body in cationic states. From the teachings of Arnold E. Rett, we know that certain foods stimulate mucus production because it throws off the electron-proton balance within our atoms, because those foods contain foreign chemistry not in alignment with our species-specific diet. This mucus has to be stored somewhere, so it accumulates in our lungs, sinus cavities, or anywhere it sees fit. That's why when you get a cold or the flu, you get a runny nose or a heavy cough. That cold or flu threw your body into a state of detoxification and has now begun to expectorate that stored mucus. That's also why people have to blow their nose more and get sick more often in the wintertime. The cold air is alkaline, so if you are acidic, the alkalinity of cold winter temperatures will start to detox you. Everything you accumulate must be eliminated, whether that be through the colon, the skin, the lungs, or the urine. That's why some people even see mucus in their stools. Over time, mucus can even begin to plaque along the intestine walls, causing malabsorption, digestive issues, bloating, or that beer belly that you see most people have. And another example would be cholesterol. Cholesterol is a lipid-based response to a highly acidic environment. Since it is a lipid synonymous with fat, it again acts as a buffer, as a cushion, to those destructive, painful acids that accumulate in the arteries. It itself isn't inherently bad. It is the body's solution to an underlying deeper problem. And that problem is acidosis. So you can see how the illusion of disease in the perspective of the medical field is that they are all separate illnesses, all separate conditions, when in reality they are all symptoms of the same problem. Hashimoto's, breast cancer, leukemia, asthma, arthritis. It doesn't matter what name they give you. They are all a product of acidosis. The only difference between acne and, say, stage 4 brain cancer is the degree of acidosis that has developed. The phases go from acute, subacute, to chronic. Obviously, your cancer or tumor cases are when the body has become more severely acidic lymphatically. Fibromyalgia, or diseases where you see widespread pain, is when the interstitial fluid, the fluid between the cells, has become acidic systemically. So you can see how Western medicine's theory of labeling every symptom and grouping those symptoms into those categories called diseases is inherently flawed. That's why they have developed specialists for every type of condition. I mean, just think about how many specialties there are for every disease they can think of. There are over 135 different specialties and subspecialties for every condition they create. Radiology, cardiology, gynecology, dermatology. Do you notice anything? Does it sound familiar to the itis conditions I mentioned earlier? Follow the same pattern? Ology just means the study of. So all of these medical specialties you see are simply the study of different areas of the body. But therein lies the problem. That's the flaw. Cardiology is the study of the heart. Dermatology is the study of the skin. Their obsession with looking at the body from a microscopic scale and treating disease from its separate parts creates this illusion of separation, when in actuality these systems need to be looked at as a whole. Health is holistic. It is the sum of all of its parts. That's why the act of using chemical medications to treat all of these different diseases does not ever get to the root of the problem, and instead it suppresses and adds on to the problem because those drugs are not harmonious within the body. They are plant isolates, not whole plant form. Most of the pharmaceutical medications fall on the acid side of chemistry and only further contribute to acidosis. That's why when you take one medication to treat one symptom, you end up with another whole list of symptoms or side effects as a result. They suppress our body's natural immune responses and disrupt the steroidal, metabolic, and chemical interactions that usually take place. Research the history of Rockefeller, and you will know these medications were never created to heal. In the beginning, these medications were petroleum-based. They would melt into a black tar-like solid if you were to burn them on a hot plate. I mean, you just can't fight acid with acid. You have to obey the laws of chemistry. And, not to mention, anatomy. Contrary to what the paleo diet would like you to believe, our bodies were not designed to be eating meat, grains, or high-fat, high-protein food. Our ancestors ate that way to survive, not necessarily because it was their optimal diet. If you look at our teeth structure and our intestinal anatomy in comparison to other species, we find that our anatomy is not that of a carnivore, herbivore, or omnivore. We are, in fact, frugivores. This isn't about beliefs or opinions or morals. Facts don't care about your opinions. It's simply looking at our anatomy in translation to the food we were designed to eat. For example, human milk is 0.89% protein and 7.4% carbs. Wait, but I thought humans needed protein for growth. If protein makes up less than 1% of a baby's diet during its vital stages of development, do you really still think protein is needed to grow? It's the carbohydrates giving you energy, giving you life, not the protein. Carnivores have short intestinal tracts so that the highly acidic meat they are consuming can be digested quicker within their bodies. We have long intestinal tracts. Because of this design, ingesting meat can actually lead to putrefaction, meaning it can start to rot within our intestines. This is the reason most people have body odor. You smell like the rotting tissue cesspool inside your body. Since fruit and vegetables digest easily and quickly, they do not cause us to smell. Meat takes almost 3 times the amount of energy it takes to digest fruit. And look at how long carnivores like lions have to sleep a day in order to regain that energy lost in digestion. Up to 20 hours. We as humans should really only be sleeping 5 to 6 hours a day. The reason most people need the recommended 8 hours is because we are eating heavy, hard to digest foods. That high protein diet you think is so good for you is actually depleting your energy and harming your kidneys. Our kidneys were not made to handle such large amounts of meat. In order for our body to even use protein, it must first be broken down into an amino acid. This results in energy loss rather than energy gained. And again, the loss of energy is the loss of ATP, which is crucial for all living cells. And going back to what I talked about earlier, elements in chemistry like to be grouped together. Meat itself is very nitrogen dominant, rich in phosphorus. Large amounts of these elements can throw off the natural calcium electrolyte balance, forcing our body again to kick in that calcium buffering system. Not to mention, when metabolized, it can release harmful acids like uric and phosphoric acid, which further leads to the accumulation of those acidic pHs. Meat can also actually begin to decrease natural steroid production in our adrenal glands. The reason you might feel energized while eating meat is because it releases a neurotransmitter called epinephrine, which is another word for adrenaline. Over time, this can lead to low blood pressure, Parkinson's disease, and it can prevent our adrenals from producing their own neurotransmitters. It's a stimulant. I mean, just look at all the kidney problems the bodybuilding industry is having. The majority of them have some degree of kidney scarring or dysfunction. So going back to what I was explaining earlier about the importance of our kidneys in the progression of disease, how would one know if our kidneys are filtering out that lymphatic waste I had mentioned? Well, it's actually easier than you might think. We just need to look at our urine. Contrary to what you've been told, our urine should not be clear. Now by clear, I do not necessarily mean color. I mean that you should see white particle sediment or specks. If you were to pee into a jar and let it sit for 24 hours, there should be white sediment that has settled at the bottom of the jar. That's your metabolic and cellular waste. Those are the acids that are causing your disease. Do you see all those white particles? If that is not coming out through your urine, that is what is going back into your body, clogging your lymphatic system and manifesting as the diseases you have. This is the origin of your pain. It all stems from this single problem. We as humans have eaten outside of our species-specific diet for too long. We were designed to be eating foods that metabolize harmoniously. We've been living in a world that believes food has no impact on our health. That high-protein diets, fast food, and food that can sit on grocery shelves for years is somehow compatible to our body's natural chemistry. We as humans need to wake up to the law of cause and effect. How many people nowadays have some sort of medical condition? How many people are taking medication? How many are suffering with mental disorders? The majority of these mental disorders are a physical problem. The food we are eating and the chemicals we are exposed to is what is making us sick, is what is making us mentally ill. We're depressed because we're eating fake food, using technology to escape from a fake world. Perhaps if we actually took the time to observe our thoughts, to become conscious of the world we are living in, perhaps we would be able to see that the very thing we are using to numb ourselves is what is causing our dis-ease. We have become addicted to food, a slave to the chemical pleasures these food produces in our brain. So, the solution is to wake up to the systems we exist in that were designed to keep us sick. Listen to the ones who understand that pharma was not designed to heal us, the ones who have been hurt by the medical system, who have been to 20 different specialists, who have taken 20 different medications, only to end up worse than how they started, the ones who had to figure out for themselves what was making them sick when their doctors couldn't tell them. Listen to those people. We are the ones trying to help you understand the fallacy of our healthcare system. We need to start seeing the systems for what they are and break free from the medical merry-go-round of disease, to think for ourselves, to align our thought patterns, our habits, and our diets to that of which contributes to wellness, to eat foods that breathe life, not illness. We've been consuming the foods on the wrong side of chemistry. We need to be eating the life-giving fruits that provides those electrolytes I talked about earlier for our cells. Our atoms need those electrons. I mean, just look at the difference between a plate full of fruit versus a bowl of oatmeal. Which do you think our cells want more? As humans, we are naturally attracted to color, vibrancy, because it is a sign of life. That's why you hear people saying, eat the rainbow. Our cells crave that life-giving, electrifying energy from those foods Earth designed for us to eat. Look at the difference between the following pictures, and you tell me which one you think breeds disease and which one gives life. Health becomes obvious once we take a step back and take a look at the bigger picture. Not to analyze our food at that microscopic scale. Forget about your proteins, your fats, your micronutrients for a minute and just look at the color, the pigments of the food we are consuming. That right there is the simplest indication of what we should be eating. Man's flaw is its need to try to think so logically and scientifically about everything. Health really is simple. The earth provided all we need. Now put your ego aside. We need to stop pretending man knows best, that man can somehow outsmart nature and its laws. This is where we have been led astray. Life is an energetic experience. It is kinetic, always moving. We only see disease arise when there is an obstruction to the flow of energy. Remove the obstructions and energy begins to flow again. Life is renewed. So I guess my message is that we need to learn how to become our own doctors, to return to the earth and nature for all the answers we are looking for, to become our own healers. And in doing so, you create a ripple effect that will heal the world, because it all starts with healing ourselves, right?